Hi, third grade. Detectives in Togas, Chapter 6, Handwriting. The boys were taken aback. It had not occurred to them that Rufus might not be the culprit after all. Swear? Mucius demanded. I swear, Rufus repeated firmly, raising his right hand. Mucius whirled around and fixed the others with suspicious eyes. What about the rest of you? He asked threateningly. It certainly wasn't me, Publius said, angry. I've told Caius often enough to his face that he's a dumbbell. There's no reason for me to write it on a wall. Perhaps one of Venetia's slaves is responsible, Antonius suggested. Caius might have played some trick on him, like slipping nettles into his bed. To get even, the slave wrote Caius as a dumbbell on the temple wall. What slave in Rome is crazy enough to desecrate a temple? Julius pointed out. We're the dumbbells, Julius said slowly, squinting rather anxiously at Rufus. Didn't Claudia tell us that Caius recognized Rufus' handwriting at once? That's a lie, Rufus protested. How can it be my handwriting if I didn't do it? Mucius frowned, but Caius seems to think he knows your handwriting very well. Rufus gave a forced laugh. That's a good one. Caius is too dumb to recognize anybody's handwriting. He can hardly read. Yet. His friends did not laugh at the joke. They looked at him seriously. This put an end to Rufus' humor. He fell silent and began thinking. At last he sighed with relief. I can prove that it's not my handwriting, he said triumphantly. How? Mucius asked. Give me a writing tablet, Rufus said. I'll write Caius as a dumbbell, and then you can see right away that scrawl on the temple could not have been written by me. This sounded simple enough, and the others agreed. Rufus took a stylus and tablet and prepared to scratch the words into the wax. But you must write just the way you always do, Julius warned him, and write it as big as you did last night at school, Mucius directed. Rufus nodded. He sat hunched on his bed, tilting his head to one side as he wrote. He kept running the tip of his tongue nervously over his lips. Having completed his sample of handwriting, he handed the wax tablet to Mucius. That's how I write it, he said with self-assurance. The other boys crowded behind Mucius and peered at the tablet. Well, Rufus said uneasily, why don't you say something? Mucius mumbled, rubbing his nose in embarrassment. It looks just like the writing on the wall of the temple, said Antonius, who had an excellent memory. No, Flavius disagreed. It looks altogether different. To tell the truth, I no longer remember it, Mucius admitted. Neither do I, said Julius. We'll check up on that right away, Antonius said, snatching the tablet from Mucius's hand. I'll run over to the temple and compare the two handwritings. Wait, I'll go with you, Publius said. Otherwise you'll be telling us crazy stories when you get back. A good idea, Mucius said. But be careful that nobody catches you near the temple, especially with that tablet in your hands. You can depend on that, Antonius said, and sped out the door, followed by Publius. An embarrassed silence fell in the little room. Rufus refused to look at his friends. He sat staring absently down at his toes, which were sticking out from under the blanket. After a while, he asked hesitantly, Haven't any of you been to school today? By the gods, Mucius exclaimed. We almost forgot to tell you. Xanthopus has forgiven you. Rufus looked up, scarcely daring to believe what he had heard. He has forgiven me? He murmured. Then he doesn't intend to talk to my mother? No, Julius said. He only wanted to give you a good scare. Rufus sat numbed. If I had only known that, he whispered under his breath. But the others paid no attention. Flavius said, after the vacation, you can come back to school. You see, we're all on a vacation, Julius explained, and he launched into the story of the assault on Xanthopus. But who could have attacked him? Rufus asked wonderingly when Julius had finished. That's the mystery, Mucius said. And the funny part of it is that nothing was stolen but a few silly mathematics books and pictures. He then went on to tell Rufus about Claudia and her father's threats. Rufus was shaken when he heard that the senator wanted to report him to the prefect of the city. "But I didn't have anything to do with it," he stammered. "If you really didn't, well, go to the senator and tell him so," Julius said consolingly. He felt sorry for Rufus. All the boys liked Rufus. He was a good sport and always full of fun and good ideas for games. They heard Antonius and Publius returning, and even before he reached the door, Antonius called out, "The handwriting is just the same." He came running in, wax tablet in hand. "I was right. The writing on the wall looks exactly like the writing on this tablet." "It's true," Publius seconded. "I'll bet a gold piece against a single sesterce that Rufus wrote it." A sesterce is a type of money during that time. "On my word of honor, I didn't write it," Rufus said, cried out in anguish. "You must have," Publius said. "No," Rufus asserted at the top of his voice. Suddenly his eyes widened and he said, as though he had found the answer and were frightened by it, "My handwriting has been forged." "What? How?" Mucius demanded. "Somebody has copied my handwriting," Rufus announced. "But why?" Flavius asked. "So that people will think I did it," Rufus replied, staring into space with sadness, resignation, and fright in his eyes. "Well," Julius murmured, "who do you think could have copied your handwriting?" Rufus hesitated for just a moment. Then he said softly, "How should I know?" "We are wasting valuable time," Mucius said angrily. "You must run away. We have already planned where to hide you." "No, I won't," Rufus declared hotly. "If I run away, people will feel certain that I did it. My own father and mother would believe it." At this, Mucius' patience gave out. "You're crazy," he accused Rufus. "Do you want to have your hands chopped off or be dumped into the Tiber?" He instantly regretted these harsh words, for Rufus cried out in despair, "You think I'm lying, but I really did not do it." Then he turned toward the wall and drew a blanket up over his ears. The boys could hear his smothered sobbing. Julius tried to soothe him. "We don't think you're lying, but it is very hard to copy anyone's handwriting. My father once told me that. The forger would have to have studied your handwriting for a long time in order to learn how you wrote any letter." Rufus sat up in a jerk. "The writing tablet," he cried out. "The tablet I hung up in the classroom wall. Caius is a dumbbell. It was written on that." The others did not understand what he was getting at. "You're talking in riddles like an oracle," Publius said. "Perhaps the person who broke into the school wanted to steal the tablet in order to copy my handwriting," Rufus said. "But nothing was missing except books and pictures," Julius pointed out. Rufus looked dismayed, but Antonius began to jump with excitement. "Hey!" he exploded. "The tablet was gone. Do you remember? It was not hanging on the wall this morning." Their faces all brightened. "We must go back to the school at once," Mucius said. "If it was stolen, Rufus is right. That will prove once and for all that his handwriting was forged." "How so?" Publius asked. "How so? How so?" Mucius mocked his manner. "Because otherwise no burglar would bother to steal a writing tablet." "You have something there," Publius admitted. "Get dressed quickly and come with us," Mucius told Rufus. But Rufus looked embarrassed. "No, I've caught a cold," he stammered, and went into a coughing fit. "On the whole, it would be better for him to keep out of sight," Julius said. "All right, stay here," Mucius said. "We'll be back soon." The boys piled their school things in a corner and set out at once. As soon as they were gone, Rufus peered hastily under his bed. He sighed again with relief and leaned back against his pillow. Xanthopus was surprised when his pupils unexpectedly returned. He was sitting up in bed reading, his right leg wrapped in wet cloths. In the apartment's tiny kitchen, a woman was busying herself with the cooking. Hearing the boys, she peered curiously around the corner of the room and then grinned cheerfully at them. "Teacher sick, no school," she chuckled. "Poor man had pains all night." She rolled her eyes to express her sympathy, then returned to her pots and pans. Why have you come back? Xanthopus asked crossly. Mucius asked for Rufus's writing tablet. Writing tablet, Xanthopus wanted to know. The one that has Caius is a dumbbell written on it. Xanthopus was instantly suspicious. What do you want with it? He asked. Rufus would like to have it back so he can erase it, Mucius lied boldly. He's ashamed about it. The boys had decided on the way not to mention the desecration of the temple to their teacher, for fear that it would stir up his anger against Rufus all over again. So he's ashamed, is he? Xanthopus said with satisfaction. About time. The tablet must be lying in the closet over there, in the chest over there. Isn't it hanging in the classroom anymore? Julius asked hypocritically. He only wanted to know why Xanthopus had removed it. No, Xanthopus said, I don't care to have such things on exhibit on the walls of my school. I put it away in the chest last night. You boys must have noticed it when you cleaned up. The boys rushed to the chest and went through it from top to bottom, but the writing tablet was not there. It's gone, Mucius reported, inwardly triumphant. Then you boys must have misplaced it, Xanthopus scolded. That's what comes out of your careless way of doing things. The boys searched all the shelves and finally went through the entire classroom, but the writing tablet could not be found. Back at Xanthopus's bedside, Mucius made his solemn announcement. The thief who was here last night stole Rufus's writing tablet. A strange thing to steal, Xanthopus said vexedly. That tablet isn't worth a copper. The boys bid Xanthopus goodbye, but as they were on their way out, Mucius noticed something shiny lying under the wardrobe. He stooped and fished it out. Look what I've found, he said. It was a short, wide gold chain with a flat disc of gold at one end, a hook at the other. Apparently the hook had been forced open and bent upward. Mucius brought the chain to Xanthopus. Is this yours? He asked. No, Xanthopus replied. For a while he regarded the chain thoughtfully. Suddenly he gave a short laugh. Ha! But I can tell you to whom it belongs. Who? The boys asked excitedly, half guessing the answer. It belongs to the burglar, Xanthopus said. Remember to write 3 very good sentences telling what is going on in this chapter. Now don't get behind on this, guys. Remember, we've got a couple of mysteries. 1, the burglar. What's up with that? 2, who's writing on the wall? Are they connected? Are they part of the same mystery? And where was Rufus? Bye.